Alright, so here we're going to, if you just hold it and move the compass, we'll start out with a nice gentle rain from the squirt bottle. It's increasing the moisture content in the upper surface here. I'm intentionally aiming right at the top rather than farther down. We get a few little rivulets of water going over the surface because we've got a lot of clay in this soil. They're actually almost like little tiny debris flows. You can see little levees. If I all of a sudden turn the rain off, we can see these little tiny levees that have higher sides than in the middle, and we can see a little debris flow down here that has kind of terminated in this little lobate deposit, which is a very characteristic deposit that you'd find on alluvial fans, for example. As we perhaps increase the rain rate, I start squirting a little faster. The area that is actually dripping is larger, and the area of soil that is completely saturated is also larger. So right now, essentially all the water is just running over the surface, and there's very little that's actually percolating into the slope. And I could keep going all day, but I won't. I'll switch to a little more intense rain. So water droplets, if I focus it in one place, we can create a little rill. Sorry, I'm eventually going to make a mess. Go faster and faster, and gradually now we're starting to get mass movement all over the entire slope, and it's caving in as the entire surface has now been completely saturated. And that's a very characteristic pattern. If I now just try and clean it out a little bit, a very characteristic pattern that you would see in some places in nature.
Where should we put these?
Just right there is fine. And then if you can clean up your area a little bit. But you should stick around and watch. So next up, this one we've got, hold it up high. And at what? We were at 45, right? Up a little higher. That's good. Okay, so we'll start again with the nice little mist. In this case, again, we're seeing right away a lot of overland flow, water that's just flowing right over the surface and not sinking in very much. But with the grain sizes here, the grain size is a little bit bigger, so we're actually getting some significant sediment transport, which you might be able to see if you look closely. You can see all the little silt grains washing their way down. And so gradually over time, this surface is eroding faster than the previous surface that we were looking at. And we can see some little rill channels beginning to develop, areas where the water tends to focus itself, and those would, if I kept going forever, those would eventually get deeper. But now that I've done this for a little while, we can see there's an area up at the top here where bigger rocks that were embedded in the subsurface have now been exposed at the surface and are making it more difficult to erode the material underneath it. And that again is a very classic pattern that you see on alluvial fans, for example. So we'll increase the rain intensity again and see what happens. If I again just focus right in the middle of the landscape, here again most of the water is just running over the surface, but we are saturating going down in, and we're carving more of a channel than we saw in the first one. This again has more silt than clay, and So we carve a nice little channel right down the middle, which as I make the rain rate go up, in order to just end this, it goes something like that. All right. Hold it over a little bit more. Okay, good. And the last group so set it up at 45. And hold it up so that the bottom is just right at the lip there, so I can see it a little higher even. Good. And set 45. Alright, so starting with the fine mist once again. Here we've got mostly silt and less clay, so the first few raindrops soaked in, but now we've reached a point where the upper surface is completely saturated, and we now have more overland erosion once again. This one appears to me to be eroding much faster than the others. We can actually see a little rill propagating its way up from the bottom and forming a nice little channel there. The right side is collapsing much faster than the left side, and the channel, even with just this fine mist, has now propagated all the way up to the headwaters of the little watershed. And if I increase the rain intensity, even though it would be interesting just to keep going with the modest one, I'll go on the other side over here and see if we can get landslide. We don't really get a landslide, we just get additional erosion because, once again, the percentage of silt in this is significantly higher than the other experiments. And call that good. So on your way home tonight, think about how these little landslides are relevant or similar or different from the ones that you see as you look at the landscape, and also think about some of the human applications or ways that landslides are relevant to human society. Anyone who would like to help clean up, I welcome a little bit of help with the stuff up in front here.